And the other one.
Hi guys, we're back live. Sorry about that. There's issues with Google this morning, so we're going to just restart the show here, and we apologize for those of you who are watching on the other channel. Hopefully, you've come across to this one soon.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Google's giving us as good customer service as United is.
Yeah, Google's up there today.
Well, I'll tell you what. If Google gives me that survey asking how it is, I'm going to give it to them.
On our good list, yeah. All right, does look like we're working now. Just making sure that they may have to see. Yeah, here we go.
Well, I'll tell you what. If Google gives me that survey,
here we go.
There you go.
So we are live. All right, so we got 4 people viewing. We'll be back. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, just one of those days here. That's okay.
And to you four, we'll give you $1 each for staying with us.
Yes, I know. Yeah, you guys are good. You guys got back in. I mean, it's like everything. It's funny. Everything I have on Google is just going crazy. So I thought it was my computer, but maybe not. That's all right though. All right, so we're gonna start again here. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Hello, Hockey World again. This is Monday, April 17th, 2017.
I think I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen 2.0.
Russ Cohen, and I'm Eklund, and there we're off to the races. You're watching HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings. I'm a little bit shorter today than normal, but we got to let Mike get off to Toronto for tonight. I wanted to start with the Leafs, and it was interesting that we went off on this. Russ, you actually said you think you picked the Leafs to be swept, and you were.
I think I have, yeah. I think
and you're confident about. You still think they almost got swept. You still think they're going?
I do. I think they were just like inches away. I mean, I really do. I mean, look, good for them for getting a game. I still don't think they're going to win another game. Now they could. Anything's possible. Listen, if there's one thing we've learned, the NHL playoffs are crazy, and anything is possible. But I think Washington probably looked at that game and said, "Okay, we got to stop playing around. We got to really take it to them now."
I don't know. I mean, I'll let Mike go in a second, but I think that I don't agree with you at all. I actually think that
you don't have to.
I know. I think they're closer to being up 2-0 in this series, to be honest.
No.
I know, and I really feel as if, and I know that people are going to sit there and shake their heads and all that stuff, but the fact of the matter is, the way to beat Washington is what they're doing. They're doing the right thing to beat Washington, and they have the speed and the skill up front to beat Washington. They don't have the defense to hold off Washington.
Yeah, but once you get to overtime, like they can't be playing to get into overtime and hoping that they win in overtime. Like that is not a
of the Stanley Cup Finals when you're an 8th seed against a 1 and you're
that's not a game plan. I don't think that's Babcock's game plan.
I don't think it's a game plan either. But they got up in both games. They were up in both games. They got they held.
That's a game plan. I agree with that.
They held the lead longer than the Capitals did in the first 2 games. I just think, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, now I'm not going to say they're going to win the series, but I think they're in this series more than, and I think that they're really in the series. Like, and I think that what happens tonight, of course, will be the telling game because you come back to game 3, 5, and they always say game 3 and 5 are the big games. So it'll be very telling. Now, if they come out tonight, and this is the one thing I'll say, I think Babcock's out coaching Barry Trotz, and I like Barry Trotz a lot as a coach. I think he's out coaching him, and I think when you get down to it now, Babcock now has the ability to line match, which will be enormous, and will be able to give him the ability to get Austin Matthews more free because they've done it so far without a lot of Matthews.
That's sort of what I wrote today, but I'm gonna take a middle ground here. Are they more in the series than people thought? Yes. Are they still going to lose in 5? Probably. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that was my prediction. Capitals in 5.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, you can't underestimate Babcock and his ability to match lines. But when now you're probably bringing back Nikita Zaitsev, which they are today.
They are bringing back.
Probably quicker than they want to because they have to because Roman Polak is out for the season.
Right.
You put Martin Marincin out on the ice, you are guaranteeing the Capitals a good scoring chance. The guy is horrific. He cost them game 1. He took a penalty in the second period in game 2 that led to the power play goal that tied it. For some reason, Babcock played him more minutes than Connor Carrick. I don't understand why. He apparently has more confidence in Marincin in the defensive zone. But really, the reason the Leafs won is because unlike game 1, their 4th line produced and beat up the Capitals' 4th line. But right now, the Capitals' top lines are not scoring. They've scored 3 goals on the power play. They're not scoring enough 5-on-5, and Toronto's special teams have been, I think, close to abysmal. They've scored 1 power play goal, and they've given up 3 power play goals. So
you're close to abysmal, and yet here we are.
Well, but it's because of Freddie Anderson, Eck. It's because Freddie Anderson is playing great.
I mean, Freddie Anderson, I could argue, cost them game 1 with that. I mean,
that's no.
I mean, I'm not saying he didn't make some great saves before that, but that was a terrible goal in overtime. All right, and he made you can't let any of those in. And the bottom line is they're as good as he's going to. I mean, he's got to carry them because he is their defense. They don't have any defenders. I mean, they have some defense, and that's obviously where this team's at, right? This team is not a stalwart on defense yet. I mean, the difference between them and the Oilers right now, when you look at the 2 teams that I always put together, these 2 young teams, eventually I feel like I'm going to be covering Stanley Cup finals, traveling back and forth between Edmonton and Toronto. When you look at them, to me, what's his name? Chris, the defenseman on the Oilers who's blocking all these shots. Chris
Russell.
Chris Russell, thank you. Chris Russell is the difference between those 2 teams right now. I mean, Chris Russell, and when I look forward with the Leafs, I see, players like Russell are easy to get, and not that he's. I mean, Russell was available for a long time. Not that he hasn't played incredible in Edmonton, but this is what you can do if you're Toronto moving forward. So, with the kind of players that they have that you can't get, I mean, they added Kapanen all of a sudden, who is now like one of their leading scorers and just killed him.
He's right place, right time. It's not like he's dominating. He's not dominating. He's right place, right time, playing well. Here's the thing, Eck. TJ Oshie has to shoot more than once in a game. Kuznetsov has to shoot more than 4 times. It's not like the Leafs are preventing these shots. Right. It's the system that Barry Trotz runs that's preventing these guys from being more offensive than they are. Now, Ovechkin got 9 shots, and he did get a goal. I don't care if Ovechkin, if I'm the coach, shoots 15 times. I want TJ Oshie to shoot 10 times. I don't want these guys to play it safe. When you play it safe against a team that's less talented than you, like the Leafs, you get these kinds of results.
Yeah. Right now they're playing with fire.
They are playing with fire. I agree with that.
If they continue to play with fire tonight, and Toronto gets any confidence tonight with another win, then it really gets interesting because this Capitals team has so much to lose, and this Toronto team has nothing to lose.
And that's the reason why there's probably more of a chance, because the pressure, as Babcock has called it, the pucker factor, is something that is going to factor into the series in regards to Washington having to live up to the expectations of being the President's Trophy winner and putting this team away quickly, and the Leafs are playing with house money. So, but the problem is their defense is thin, and you're using that Edmonton-Toronto comparative. The Leafs don't have a Clefbaum. The Leafs don't have an Adam Larson. They have Morgan Riley, who's a very good young defenseman, offensive-minded. They have Zaitsev, who's a rookie, but has experience. Jake Gardiner played 40 minutes. Nobody in their right mind in any playoff situation, unless they absolutely have to, is playing Jake Gardiner 40 minutes. So that's what's desperation in terms of Babcock. He's forced to do that. If next year they go out and they acquire Carl Alsner or trade for a defenseman, you're not going to see Jake Gardiner playing anywhere close to those minutes.
No, of course not. But the experience he's getting right now playing those minutes is enormous for his career.
26 years old, Eck. If he doesn't have the experience now, he's
never been in the playoffs before. I mean, they've been in the playoffs one time. So I mean, he doesn't have that experience. It's not his fault. I mean, he's been with the one team the entire time, right? So, I mean, you're looking at the whole – I mean,
don't give out cowbells. Please don't give out cowbells. What a bad idea that was.
Yeah. Yes, we had 2 social media phenomena on Saturday. The stupid cowbells in Washington, and the guy who's been named Dart Guy because it's a Maple Leaf fan who's got a mohawk shaped of a Stanley Cup with his face painted and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He's being made into a social media celebrity and being given free tickets to the game tonight. It's unbelievable.
Well, this is the playoffs. That's what it's all about. It's for some reason these things happen every playoff year. You always have something crazy happening.
He looked like Krusty the Clown with a Leafs jersey on. That's what he looked like.
I know. You're sorry just seeing crazy playoff things. Like I'm look at Guentzel, in Pittsburgh. The hat trick. There's crazy stuff happening already.
Okay, but the Guentzel thing is explainable. Here, I looked up my notes on Guentzel, who I always thought was a good player. He had 21 goals in Scranton. He had 19 goals at at University of Nebraska Omaha as his high. He never played with Sidney Crosby. When you play with Sidney Crosby and you have decent ability, which he's always had, you get crazy results. And this is, if anybody can look past the hate of Sidney Crosby, you have to notice the greatness, because he has been doing this his whole career, making players better. That's what he does.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the truth. I mean, that's the reality of Crosby.
And if Mike would have listened to me in his stupid hockey pool, Brian Rust has 3 goals. I told him to take Brian Rust. He didn't do it. I hope he scores 10 goals.
Well, I didn't pick any Penguins because I don't think the Penguins are going to go far this year.
Well, they're going past the first round.
They're going past the first round, and I have to say that, you know, I'm really dumbfounded by the complete lack of show up by the Blue Jackets. Now, they did show up yesterday. They scored 3 goals in the first period. It didn't last. I mean, they've played really good defensive hockey all year, and they cannot stop the Penguins. They haven't really been physical with them, with the exception of Matt Calvert breaking a stick over Kuhnackel's neck. I mean, I didn't think that they've stepped up the physical game the way I expected them to, and they're just letting Pittsburgh, giving them offensive opportunities, and it's really a shame because I think that Columbus could have made this a series, but this is going to go 4 or 5.
There were 2 big factors. We still don't know if Bob is a primetime playoff goalie. We still don't know that. And the second factor is, and this was fascinating, I give Jeremy Roenick a lot of credit for this. You know, Zach Werenski gets hit in the eye, goes under his visor. His eye blows up. He goes in the locker room, gets it stitched. He comes out, but his eye blew up to the point where he couldn't see in overtime, so he doesn't get to play in overtime, which is obviously a factor. Jeremy Roenick said something which, it makes him a badass, but all hockey guys badasses. And basically that was, he said after he got stitched, before he got stitched, he said, I wonder if he got shot up with Novocaine, because if you do, it tends to blow up the area. He said in the old days, what we would do is just put ice on it, let him stitch us up, and we get back in the game, and it would never blow up like that. I would be in the hospital if you just put ice on me and try to stitch me up like that. Werenski's putting a selfie on the internet. It was just hats off to these guys. But Roenick really noticed something. He did.
And ironically, like on social media, on Twitter, Matthew Tkachuk, who he knows from the U.S. developmental program, just typed a 1-word reply: legend. Which is
but
good.
He didn't play in overtime, and that was a definite factor.
Yeah, his eye closed up. So,
well, it could have been. You could have been Novocaine, though. Like you said, it's interesting. I mean, I mean, he's out the remainder of the series, though. Now, so that's kind of crazy.
Well, that's 1 game or 2 at the most right now, the way it's going. Let's just re-say what we were talking. Yeah, let's just re-talk about what, or talk again, Russ, briefly on the Rangers and Canadiens.
Yeah, because it's just more fun to talk about it a second time.
No, I know, but we're gonna hide that other part of the show, so
okay.
We can't meld them together. I'm surprised. I thought the Rangers I thought the Rangers had an advantage in this series. They had the lead in game 2. I think they had that game, and then they let Plekanec score that goal with less than a minute to go in regulation, win it in overtime on the Radulov goal. And then yesterday, Russ, I don't think they showed up. I don't think the Rangers showed up at all.
Yeah, I think, look, they got Klein in there. That's fine. That helped a little bit. Alain Vigneault has been very stubborn in the way he runs this team. Most of the time, it runs the same way all the time. They become very predictable. They didn't have a lot of fire. They become predictable to the point where Claude Julien has really just pushed a few buttons, and because Vigneault doesn't adjust, really makes the Rangers look bad. Like, basically, Galchenyuk finally was playing the way you'd like to see Galchenyuk play, controlling the puck, being a factor. But I saw timidness out of the Rangers. I saw no confidence. I saw Rick Nash have a chance at an open slot to get in on a shorthanded opportunity. He circled around center ice. He waited for the puck to get chipped in. Then he went to go and take a shorthanded opportunity. Little things like that have taken away any edge the Rangers had offensively. And Matt Zuccarello just got reckless in that game. And I think that's out of frustration. And Henrik Lundqvist is frustrated. he's not giving up goals because he's frustrated, but you could tell he is not happy with the guys in front of him and the way things are going down. And the Rangers can't win at the Garden Neck, and that is the biggest factor that I said before the series began.
In a row.
In the playoffs, it's in the regular season, it's more than that.
In the playoffs, and but playoff. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You got to win at home in the playoffs. I mean, it does remind me. We've covered these two before, in two different situations, playing against each other. I mean, that Boston Vancouver series, where you saw Julien against Vigneault, was to me the most outcoached I've ever seen a guy. Like, I really felt like Julien schooled him in that series.
Yeah, he's doing it again.
He's doing it again, and I think he's inside Vigneault's head. Like, and that what's fascinating about the Stanley Cup Finals is you really get more time with the coaches than you do in other situations. You get to see them; they do press conferences twice a day. You get to really talk to them, and you really saw in that series that Julien had was pulling strings, and Vigneault's way of approaching that was as if I'm not going to bite into that. I'm not going to change anything because of what he's doing. But sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to change what you're doing because of what the other team's doing. Well, and I think that's what's happening with Rangers right now is they're not adjusting to what Montreal's doing.
Well, let me, and just briefly here, Russ, if the Rangers do go down in this series, they lose in 5 or 6. What's going to happen? I mean, is Vigneault going to get fired? I mean, is there going to be
anything? He won't get fired, but he'll be on a short lease next year because Jeff Gordon didn't hire Alain Vigneault. He's the new GM. He probably has an idea of who he'd like to hire if for some reason things didn't work out. So I think he'd be on a short leash now because I think ownership would still want to give Vigneault a chance next year. But the problem is it's 50-50 between Vigneault and the players why it's their fault. But, again, the defensive pairings could definitely be better. Now, they only have so many guys that they could use, and I get that. And that's part of, what the GM has set up for the coach. So it's not all on Vigneault. Offensively, though, it is. And the way they're operating. And we knew that Claude Julien would play puck possession hockey. And they did. They had the puck way more than the Rangers did for key scoring chances. The Rangers' speed is gone. It's still there. Players have it, but they're not utilizing it anymore because they're getting so frustrated out there with guys like Ott and Shaw. And these are things that I did bring up pre-series that why Montreal was getting ready for the Rangers. Those guys are outthinking them now. They're frustrating them. And so how many breakaways now are we seeing from Grabner? One a game? He usually gets 3 a game. Chris Kreider, non-factor, really a non-factor.
Yeah.
Zuccarello now, like I said, he became unhinged in that game. He can't do that. But, again, he can't do it all himself. Derek Stepan never seems to get the short end of the bench. Never, ever, ever. It's like he's an untouchable with that, and he's getting schooled on faceoffs, just getting killed. Zibanejad, they sit him down from like the second period, middle of the second, for all of the third. Well, not all of the third, most of the third. And then when Vigneault pulls the goalie early, he puts Zibanejad back out there. And it's just like these kinds of things make you wonder what is going on as far as the philosophy. And I'll tell you, Buchnevich is sitting on the bench, right? Very talented player. Even Brandon Peary, I'm not going to make a big case for Brandon Peary, but the Rangers' power play sucks. And if your power play sucks, the one guy who could help your power play is Brandon Peary. Every time he's on the power play, he's a factor. He gets shots on goal. He lives off the power play. He's not even playing because Tanner Glass has to play because the Rangers feel like they have to man up to everything Montreal does. At this point, the Rangers need to play the exact opposite of what Montreal does. If they don't, they will lose. And they will lose in 5 or 6.
They have to dictate it. They have to dictate the game. And I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't be dictating the game against Montreal. But
no, there isn't. But
it comes down. I think it's coming down to like we talked about before. With really good goaltending, you need your skilled players to show up. That's the bottom line. You need snipers to score goals. What you're seeing the difference in this series right now is Radulov in a lot of ways. I mean,
he's the big factor.
If Radulov's not in Montreal doesn't have the skill to score on Lundqvist. This is a totally different series right now.
Yeah.
But Radulov, scores these incredible. Yes, the goal he scored yesterday was phenomenal. I mean, just an absolute. That was.
But like I was saying earlier, wouldn't you, if you're on defense, trying to rail that, trip him, do something, get in his way? You saw what was coming. Everybody saw what was coming. They were sort of bystanders. Was it a great play? Absolutely. But nobody tried to blow it up. That was the odd part to me.
Blowing it up though he was like 1-on-2 or 1-on-3 to start with, then 1-on-2 essentially. And usually you won't take a penalty if you've got 2 guys or 3 guys. I think what happened is they almost had too much coverage. Like if it was one guy there.
No, and I think there's something to that, but it was non-physical coverage. That's my point.
It was non-physical coverage. And they got to hit. I mean, you got to hit Montreal. And the bottom, they're not hitting Montreal. I mean, Ott is totally inside, inside their head, which is crazy. I mean, that's like.
And I said it sort of jokingly, and then we can move on to the last series in the East before we go West. Honestly, if Chris Kreider is going to be a no-show, do something meaningful. Run Carey Price again, because honestly, if you don't do that, I don't even know you exist.
Well,
I mean,
you're right. Sorry. I was going to just, Mike, I was going to say, we talked about this the other day, but Eck didn't. Eck, when's the last time you saw a guy not have enough sticks on the bench and a team have to call a timeout because they couldn't find a stick, and I guess he wouldn't use anybody else's stick?
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean,
stupid things like that are costing the Rangers.
I mean, it's not about running Carey Price or anything like that. I mean, they've got.
I'm being facetious, but what I'm saying is make a difference.
Yeah, the difference has to be. I mean, he's too talented a player. He's got to do something, real, and they just have to outwork him. I mean, yesterday Columbus, the first 5 minutes, they showed what you have to do. They outworked the Penguins like crazy, but they ran out of steam. You can only keep that level up for such a long time. The Penguins are showing what they're about, which is why I think they're a force again, because previous Penguins teams would have folded after that beginning of that game last night, and yet this team doesn't. They fall down 3-1, and they fall down 1-0 right away instantly, and then they get a goal right back. They fall down 3-1, they get a goal right back. This Penguins team is really good. I mean, this Penguins team is a force, and they're not even doing it with their top goalie right now. So that's to me, that's enough. They're a force still to be reckoned with.
No, we have Game 3, Boston, Ottawa tonight, and to me, that when we talked about the opening of this series, we said it was sort of the shorthanded defense of Boston versus the shorthanded defense of Ottawa. Carlson's looked pretty good. I mean, I thought he would be a little injured or a little less effective with the injury that he had, but he's played well. Yeah. But Russ, they were lucky, Ottawa, to split at home. I mean, the Bruins,
they were lucky. Carlson looked really good to me. I think we can't overemphasize enough how well Dion Phaneuf is playing in the role he's in, not just because he scored that goal. He's been playing really good hockey, like making me remember how good Dion Phaneuf used to be, because we all kind of forgot because he just got pigeonholed in Toronto after a while, and he really has played a great role for them and has really been good. Anderson, he's been really good. I mean, he has been, but we haven't been able to talk enough about him because, they were on the losing side of it. Boston's got some issues in the sense that they played Chara too much. Ty posted something on Twitter where he said, how could Chara make that play? It's such a dumb play. And I wrote fatigue. He was out there for the power play. He was out there for the PK. He was out there 5-on-5. He was out there too much. He was.
Now, Brandon Carlos skated yesterday. Not sure if he's going to come back or not. They did make an emergency recall from Providence. They called up Grillchik. So, I don't know what that means in terms of who's going to play. But if you're calling up guys,
by the way, sorry,
Grzelcyk. I'm sorry, Grzelcyk. I always butcher his name. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This series reminds me of that Vancouver-Calgary series from 2 years ago. Where you had with the first round. I think was it Vancouver won the series, or I think Vancouver won it, went to the second round and got destroyed.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's just like these are two teams that this is the result of the 2 versus 3 thing, and these are two teams that really shouldn't be playing each other. And Boston looks better because they have more experience. I'll tell you what, though, I was driving around in the afternoon on Sunday listening Saturday afternoon listening to this game a little bit on the radio. And I was listening to the Ottawa Senators announcers, and there cannot be a more negative group of announcers than the Ottawa Senators announcers.
Really?
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. Listening to that game, I'm just, guys, you're in the playoffs. I mean, just relax for a second. Yes, you lost the first game, and yes, because they talk about every power play they took, they gave the power play right back to Boston. Then they scored that great goal where Clark MacArthur gets the great goal, and then they give up a goal right away. Again,
well, it depended on when you were listening at. If it was late in the second period when they gave up 2 goals in like a minute and a half and they were down 3-1, they had a reason to be negative.
Early in the game.
But I think Eck makes a point. I've been in Ottawa more than a few times, and I think expectations grow exponentially there. Like when you had the kind of year they did, and then you got the seeding they did, and we don't think that they were as good as that seeding, even though I didn't think they were even a playoff team, but they proved it to me. They're definitely a playoff team.
They're a playoff team. You got to be realistic, though. And you also playing against a pretty good, experienced team in Boston. You played a pretty good game in the first game. Not a great game, but you played an okay game. Now, I was listening in the first period when they were down 1-0. I heard MacArthur's goal.
Yeah.
And then they got really excited about that. It was like that goal was as if, the world was going to end if he didn't score, so if they didn't score on that power play. I mean, they got the goal, which is great, but then they give it back with a bad goal, bad giveaway, a shorthanded goal right after that. And it was but it was really, it was dark. And, I think that is a team that is struggling, but they're not a powerhouse team, and they're not going past this round if they get past this round even. No. But, Montreal or the Rangers will take either one of those two teams out, I think. So it's just a matter of how this plays out. But yeah, that was crazy. I do want to talk about Chicago and Nashville too, because I think
that's the one, boy, that's just unbelievable. You could tell me that if you would have said this is going to happen, Eck, I would have ripped you apart.
I know, and I didn't think it was going to happen. I did think they would battle him, but I didn't think it was going to happen. This isn't
over. It's not over.
It's not over, but it's a bad start.
But there are differences this time around, and because I followed this before, and I followed this team. And I remember that a couple years ago, same exact thing happened. Right, they were in the playoffs against Predators, were in the playoffs against the Blackhawks, won their first 2 games at home. Everything was what it was. But there's the difference with, and I wrote an article about it yesterday, and the interesting stat was, what's different between this team, in the honor of Passover, what's so different on this night between the other teams, right? So here you go. But yes, the 2017 Blackhawks, like we talked about, they were. They have this average when you look at the power play, penalty kill, and goaltending of 18. That puts them at 15th of 16 teams in the playoffs. So despite the fact, now when you go back to their Stanley Cup years, they were 8, 7, and 10. So they're right. Those aren't great numbers because not like the Capitals who are 4 this year, but those are good numbers. And the fact that their penalty kill, which has been 3rd, 4th, and 2nd, the 3 years they won Stanley Cups, is 24th this year. That's a difference. This is a different team. Chicago team. This is a very different Blackhawks team. They're not together for whatever reason. They're not playing as a team.
I'm just wondering whether Joel Quenneville will do what he did a few years ago when they fell behind 2-0 to Nashville. They put Scott Darling in goal.
Yeah.
And Crawford did give up 5 goals. They haven't scored a goal in that series. I would be dumbfounded if this team if Chicago gets swept, or if anything's possible. Nashville could win Game 3, and if they win Game 3, then they have a chokehold on the series. But I just find it hard to believe that guys like Taves and Kane and Seabrook and Keith are going to just fold up. So I think they're definitely behind the 8 ball. I'm sure they would have rather split or win the first 2, but. Of any team that's down 2-0, the Blackhawks have the best chance to come back and win this series.
Here's what's hurting them. Defensively, I think they have enough guys. I think offensively, they have inexperienced guys.
Yes.
Nick Schmaltz, panic for them.
Yes.
Hero, Hartman, Hinostroza. This is the weakest lineup. And trust me, some of these players are going to be terrific players down the line, but they don't have a lot of playoff experience. So right now, as far as playoff experience, this is the weakest roster they've ever run with.
Yeah, everything is on the top 2 lines, Ross.
Yeah.
Everything.
The thing about those guys is that they are young players who aren't great defensively yet. And so the forwards, I think their problem is their forwards are not great defensively. In the past, they've had guys they could throw in there, before, Patrick Sharp, for what it's worth, is a good 2-way player. He's a good, solid 2-way player. They need solid 2-way players. Obviously, Jonathan Toews is a great 2-way player, but and Hossa is a great 2-way player, but not as good as he used to be. Hossa definitely cheats more towards the offense now. But
here's one thing, and this is where I have to give Laviolette credit. He is playing youngsters. Fiala got a goal. I'm happy to see Fiala finally sticking a little bit. Now, here was the one thing. The happiest thing that I've seen in this playoffs, and I almost yelled it in my house, is I didn't even know Harry Zolnacek was on the Predators. What is it with Laviolette and Zolnacek? Because Zolnacek, I haven't seen him or noticed him since the Philly days, and he comes in and he scores his first playoff goal, and I'm like, he's still in pro hockey?
His nickname is the Tanner Glass of Nashville.
Laviolette, I will tell you, Laviolette is a good coach to go against the Blackhawks. He is, the way he plays, the style he plays, and the kind of way. Remember the Flyers in that series against the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Finals. it went overtime game 6, and to be honest, that Flyers team is the team that made the playoffs on a shootout at the end of the season, right? So that Hawks team was way better than that Flyers team. So for it to go over to overtime in game 6 of that playoffs was an accomplishment and a half.
It was.
The fact that this is how Laviolette has a lot of experience playing against Chicago. And
that's true.
Doing exactly what he said he did years ago, which is like, and what I said.
Henry Solnicek. Did you even know he was in the league at
No, I would have thought he was playing in the KHL or the Swiss League. I would not have thought he was in the league at all. No, that's crazy. And I mean, Nashville's not, it's funny because when I talk about these numbers, where Chicago's 15th of the 16 teams in the playoffs, Nashville's 13th. Like Nashville's not exactly killing it with power plays, penalty kills, or goaltending either. But right now, obviously, they're getting goaltending. But the fact of the matter is, usually in games like this, if you weren't watching the games, you would sit back and say, "Oh, I bet he's stopping like 40 shots a game." He's not. Like Chicago's taking like 30 shots a game, and the crazy thing is, the shots or totals have been close between the Predators and the Blackhawks in the first 2 games. This is not.
And Ryan Ellis is finally the offensive factor I thought he would be at the NHL level. It took him a little longer. He had Shea Weber in his path. He had to get a little stronger because he's a smaller guy. But man, you could see now that he is all that.
Well, and the defense, and this is why, and a lot of people rip on me because I was talking about what's wrong with Chicago and not saying what's right with the Predators. I'm not trying to say that the Predators they might have one of the top 2 defenses in the playoffs. I mean, there's no question about, no one doubts that at all. But this is a 1 versus 8 seed again, And
we were doubting Rene a little bit though. Like, is he doubting
Rene, and for good reason. I mean, Rene has not. Last year in the playoffs, he really did play well in that Anaheim series. He did win that series for them.
But he had his worst regular season in more than a few years. And I think his save percentage was like 904, 905, which is not good. I mean, it's below average in the league now.
So goalie, right? So he's consistently throughout his career been a streaky goalie. He gets streaky at the right times. He's really tough to play against. Like Chicago right now is going to be doubting themselves big time because until you score on Pekka Rinne, it's like you're trying to put a beach ball past them. It's not easy to do.
Now, let's talk about 2 series that we can talk about pretty quickly because one is 3-0, the other one is 2-0. I completely saw this with Anaheim and Calgary. The numbers, Calgary not winning 22, 23 games in a row in Anaheim. There's a mental block there with that team, and Anaheim has always dominated them. And Russ, the thing I'm surprised at is without Fowler and without Vatanen didn't play. Really, Anaheim hasn't had any problems.
No, but we talked about that. I didn't expect them to. Fowler's a big gun, but they do have the deepest young defense core in hockey. Like as far as the guys they've been drafting.
The last time the Ducks lost in regulation this year, March 10th.
Wow.
I mean, so you're looking at a week and 7 days, it's been 5 weeks since the Ducks have lost the game in regulation. I mean, they are just playing really, really good hockey right now. And these games, these have been close games. I mean, I'll give Calgary credit. I mean, these are not blowouts. Yeah. It's not like you ever thought they were going to win either game because, the way you watched it, but they were 1-goal games. I mean.
Yeah, I think this will finally push Gibson over the top confidence-wise, too, because he's really played well. I know you've been a little bit of a detractor, not a huge one, but a little bit. And I've seen him make some spectacular saves in this series.
No, he has. I mean, and he's capable of that for sure. I'm 100% sold that he is the guy, like he's the Lundqvist or a Price or anything like that. Like, I think he's in that category below that.
Now the other series that we can go through quickly, more than a few people thought that the Wild's downturn after March the 1st was basically them, not having anything to play for. And that they would same with me, and that they would turn it on in the playoffs. And Russ, I know early in that series it was Jake Allen standing on his head because Minnesota, buzzed around the net in game 1. But as the series has gone along, the Blues are taking over the series, and the Wild are just getting more and more frustrated. And I think Dubnyk is not playing up to snuff.
He's not playing up to snuff. He's not playing horrible. You know who's really slowed down? The Minnesota defense. They look like they're old and tired, and the big guns on their defense are almost non-existent, and it seems to be affecting the whole team because that's a team that definitely needs that blue line push. They have decent offensive players, a little better than they used to, but they do need that, and they're not getting anything.
They're really not getting any sustained pressure at times. when they want to, in that first game, they showed that they can completely dominate. Like they can,
Yeah.
But it's similar to Columbus. They have to work their tails off to do that.
Yes.
It's tough in the playoffs because if you're a team like that, you have to be able to win. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you're down. You just have to purely outwork the other team, and you can get a couple goals that way and win a game. But eventually, the skill, you have to be skilled as well. Like you can't just outwork them. And the fact is, if you outwork like Columbus did in game 2 at times, and that didn't in game 1 and didn't get any result from it, then you're really frustrated because you have to get results. Now, the Wild didn't get any results in game 1 until the very end, on Parise's goal, which was fortunate.
Yeah.
They got that goal. Jake Allen is doing everything, and he is definitely one of those guys. I expected Allen to not be this good. I've never been a Jake Allen person either, but he's shown right now that when he's big, like he's playing big, he can be really, really good.
Boudreaux's not living up to whatever his reputation is anymore. He's not living up to it in the playoffs. Like he's
starting to lose it. You can sense like he's starting to really get. I agree with you there, and Boudreaux can snap. And you can tell he's starting to snap. I have a weird feeling on this series though that it still could go 6 games. Like I don't think this series is quite over. But
we haven't seen Minnesota's best game. That's the only thing I could say for them.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't. I mean, if I was to say, you got a couple 2-0 games. I don't think Anaheim's going to lose. I don't think the Penguins are going to lose at all. I think the Penguins will. At the most, Columbus will win 1 game in that series still, but that would be the most. I think St. Louis could win. I think Minnesota could win 2. If you win 2, then it could get hairy for St. Louis still. So that's the one I think. And I do think Chicago's still in it too. Like I do agree with you on that, Mike. Like this is Chicago, and I think that I don't think 3-0 is a safe lead on Chicago. Like if they get up 3-0 against Nashville, that's not safe. You have to put Chicago away. I mean, the best. What I've always felt about the best teams in the playoffs, like Chicago and LA have been, is the difference between them and everybody else is they're impossible to beat that 4th game. Like that's where it's just so difficult. Like we saw LA come back from 3-0 against San Jose. It wasn't a freak thing. This is not the Hawks have come back from 3-1 before.
Yeah,
it's not. There's no. The only problem with that, the problem with going in the hole like this, like Minnesota's done or like Chicago's done, is that you don't give yourself any room for that one stupid game, that's going to happen, and where some bad call is going to go against you or something that is going to happen that you don't give yourself any room for that by losing these early games. That's where you have to. That's where you really have to worry. I mean, I don't know if they changed Crawford. Last time they changed Crawford, it was legitimate because the Predators were scoring on Crawford like crazy. They were jumping out to like 3-0 leads against Crawford when they changed it.
Well, they did score 5 against them, so that's why I thought that there might be.
It's possible, and it's possible that they would do that again. I mean, if Chicago goes down, I think that definitely puts Crawford in an interesting situation going into the summer. Where people have said, like Kevin Allen said, he talked to Chicago and that Crawford's their guy. That they're going to keep Crawford and Darling's going to go. I'm not convinced that this goes the way it goes. That something will be a problem. I think that if Crawford doesn't win this series or loses the series in a relatively short period of time, what's to keep Chicago from continuing with Crawford? That would be interesting.
To go along the lines of Harry Zolnierchuk, of Tanner Glass, of Tom Wilson, and Kasperi Kapanen. What about Zach Kassian in Edmonton right now? Because I mean,
it's not Connor McDavid. It's Zach Kassian.
It's Zach Kassian, which is the most surprising thing. I mean, not that McDavid's been completely ineffective. He hasn't been, but you don't expect Zach Kassian to score game-winning, series-changing goals.
Yeah. And in juniors he could score a lot of goals, and he definitely took over a certain role in the NHL. He did at that brief moment when he played with the Sedins in Vancouver where he did show off his skill and did score a lot of good goals. And then that sort of went by the wayside because of the way he plays. And now it seems like that's back, and we're just not used to it. It's a great find for Edmonton, that's for sure, because it's curing a lot of their other ills. And I think it's great. I mean, look, 1-0 game. Sharks have nothing to worry about. Yeah. Thornton's back now. Like if that series goes to 7, it favors the Sharks. If it goes to 6, it favors the Sharks because the Sharks had the experience. I know the youth can sometimes win out. I don't think the Sharks are worried at all, though.
Yeah. So an interesting thing, and before we get out of here, I saw this NHL playoff odds, and someone's doing this. It was really, I'm not really, I don't know how this works is always interesting, but it basically has to do with who has the best chance to win the Stanley Cup now, based on what's happened in the first couple of games, and that's always hard to do. But I guess it's based on what could happen down the line. With right now, and it's funny, right now Boston actually has the easiest path right to the Stanley Cup according to them. Now that's I can see that as being the case, because if you get past Ottawa, then you could play Montreal, you could play the Rangers, and then you could end up playing a beat up team out in the wet, in either Washington or Pittsburgh, whoever gets there. But I don't know. So the last thing I want to ask you guys before we get out of here is this. I asked readers this, and I got a lot of really interesting answers. If you could change any one of your predictions from beginning to now, would you change, like, as far as a team winning versus team losing? We've talked about Nashville maybe, but what do you think? What's the one that you would change right now?
Well, obviously for me, it would be Columbus and Pittsburgh. I picked Columbus in 7, thinking that they were going to play physically and try to match up Dubinsky against Crosby, and none of that has happened. So I mean they're down 3-0. So obviously that's the one I think I'd change.
Yeah, for me it would be Minnesota. I picked Minnesota in 7, I believe, and they may not even make it to 7. So like that couldn't be more wrong. And so
I Minnesota in 7 as well. I had Calgary in 6. I still believe in that one, but it's going to take a lot for Calgary to get that done in 6. But talking about the coming from 3-0 down, and the psychology of it has always been fascinating to me.
Well, we've seen it happen though, right? We saw it live.
Yeah, and I think that what is honestly the case is, I believe that it's easier for a team who doesn't have home ice advantage to come back from 3-0. This has always been my theory, and it just follow this through. I don't know why. Because 3-0 is all the NHL playoffs are all about the shifting of pressure. So that means I believe it's easier for Columbus to come back, but I don't think they will. But I think because Game 4 is okay. The team that's winning Game 4 doesn't care. If they lose Game 4, Pittsburgh loses Game 4, St. Louis loses Game 4, you go back. Game 5 is then becomes the key. And when you think about the teams that have lost 3-0 leads, Game 5 is where they've lost it. That was really their chance. Because if you lose Game 5, if you lose Game 4 and 5, you go into Game 6. This is where you want that Game 6, if you're coming from behind, to be at home. This is where I think that's the toughest game right there. And then because you go to Game 7 and you're on the road, that's where you want to be. You want to be on the road in Game 7 to come from behind. Being on the road for Game 7 when you've tied a team at 3 puts unbelievable amounts of pressure on that home team.
I agree.
It's a really tough spot. So that's why Minnesota's really in against it. But
if I think back to the Flyers Bruins, a few things have to happen. The goalie has to fold, because Tuukka Rask definitely folded, right? I could be wrong about this. Didn't Krejci get hurt? And he's always been
that was the key moment in that series, was Krejci getting hurt. And that was in game.
He's a Flyer killer.
That was in Game 4. And I remember that it was Mike Richards and Krejci colliding at center ice in the Wells Fargo Center, and we all looked at it like, oh man, the Flyers were already down 3-0. They were down in Game 4 too, so it looked like they were in trouble. But we said to ourselves, wow, that's the big thing. That's if Krejci, because if you have to lose a key player somewhere along the line, and then this happened also to San Jose. I can't remember who they lost. They lost somebody in that when the Kings came from behind. I can't remember who that was, but they did lose somebody to injury.
And that's what usually has to happen.
Well, let's talk about Edmonton real quick. Edmonton, San Jose, before we get out of here too, because that series actually is surprising me a lot more than I would not have expected Edmonton to win in this manner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to have 2 shutouts against the Sharks in a row. The Sharks really, really, really need Logan.
And I don't think that's not a slide on Talbot. We've been giving Talbot
it's just not what you'd expect the Oilers to do.
Right.
And this is a chance. Now what I'm seeing here is McClellan actually having an advantage because he's coached that Sharks team. I've seen McClellan knows how to stop that team, and he's really got them playing the right way. McClellan has had plenty of frustration with that team in the playoffs and knows how that team fails in the playoffs, and what he's putting the Sharks through is that. Now in the Game 1, I thought the Sharks overcame that and their experience won out, but going through the last 2 games, geez, that's. And Thornton yesterday, coming out with the injury, looked great in that game, despite the fact he was hurt. played really well. So they're still in this, and I still think Edmonton's got a long way to go before it's going to be tough. It's still tough to eliminate the Sharks.
Well, here's a challenge. The same way I challenge Getzlaf, if Brett Burns wants to be considered one of those elite defensemen, he needs to step up.
Yeah, this is his time. You're right about that.
And honestly, I mean, in the 3 games, I watched more of the first 2 than the one last night. Burns has sort of been, I mean, not conservative, but more conservative than he was during the regular season, Russ. And that's the thing. I think for a team, they're not challenged offensively, but I think they need him to be the catalyst offensively.
Yeah.
For him, if he plays too conservative, if he doesn't take chances like he did in the regular season, they're not going to score enough goals. And against that Edmonton team, I know that right now they're trying to play shutdown, and they've done it effectively, but eventually they're going to try to outscore the Sharks, and they're going to need Burns to produce.
This is what happened. This is what happened against Pittsburgh. This is too much respect to the skilled players. The Sharks gave too much respect to the Penguin skilled players, and it took them falling down in the series to actually just go for it and play their game, and which time they did, and they won that big game in Pittsburgh on Game 5. But this was all about that. They're doing the same thing. Burns is playing conservative because he's playing against Connor McDavid. He's playing against in that situation. Burns just has to be an offensive defenseman. You gotta let Vlasic handle McDavid, and I think this will change a lot. Back in Edmonton back in San Jose, because San Jose will have that change that will help them a lot. But home ice has been kind of tricky early on. It definitely hasn't been. It's been dead even pretty much. I think as far as I've seen, that no one's winning more at home than they are on the road. I mean, our 2-1-8 battles are 3-1 in favor of the 8 teams right now. So,
and I'm going to rip DeBoer a little bit. Why in the world would you play Yannick Hansen over a guy like Kevin Labanc, who really gave them a lot on the power play during the year and really a lot of good minutes? Yannick Hansen has never been a playoff performer, at least that I can remember.
Yeah, but Russ, they traded for Yannick Hansen.
Who cares?
They do. They do. I'm saying they traded a prospect, a good prospect,
whatever,
to get Hansen. And if they did that, they were saying, okay, well, we're going to go with the guy who's got more experience and isn't prone to potentially making rookie mistakes.
Well, Eck knows the Sharks more than I do for sure. Eck, what do you think about this?
No, I'm with you on this. And although I do think Pete DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the league, I think he is getting outcoached by a coach who knows how to get under the skin of his players, and that's what's happening to me. Like the Sharks have never been, we have Ryan Gardner on here. He would ding his bell 100 times when I said this next statement. The Sharks have never been tough mentally. That is where you can get to them. They are not a tough mental team. Last year, they got through a lot of skill, through a little bit of luck on the teams that were eliminated that they didn't have to face. They didn't have to face Anaheim. They didn't have to face Chicago. Like there's certain teams that if they had to face either of those teams, those are the mental teams that would have given them trouble.
Right.
So what's happening right now is that they are, they're facing a team in Edmonton that, shouldn't be tough mentally either, but they've gotten under their skin, and McClellan knows how to do it. He knows.
Well, I'll tell you, here's the funny thing, and this is why I would put Labanc in. He doesn't care.
Yeah, no, I think they have to go with that too.
Timo Meier doesn't care. Timo Meier had 9 hits in that game. He doesn't care about that stuff.
Change to make them. But if you're gonna beat Edmonton, you have to physical them. You have to go after them. You have to hit them.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, Hansen is a physical player.
He is, but not, I would
not the same.
But you will grant the point that they're playing him because he's got more experience, and they're
playing him because he has more experience. But the Sharks don't need more experience; they have enough experience.
Well, that's DeBoer though. That's DeBoer though. I mean, last year he played Nick Spaulding and Roman Polak because they were the most experienced guys. He's going to opt for experience.
A different year.
And one thing I want to bring up is before we go, and this is it, on Zaitsev returning tonight, which is
Wait, I have one more little thing before you do the Zaitsev.
Yeah.
So, we've been seeing pictures of Wayne Gretzky every game because he's a partner now in Edmonton, right? Here's the one thing he's been able to do, and no one has this detailed in a story, but I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. Like, Drake Caggiula has played really great on the penalty kill for the Oilers, and he was a college pickup. Spencer Fu was eating there the other night. How much you want to bet Wayne Gretzky walked in on that and said, "Hey, Spencer, I know you're talking to a lot of different teams about playing in the NHL. pat him on the back. Give ours a chance. You know, this is where Wayne Gretzky could really.
Oh, yeah. You show up and you're a kid from Canada, and Wayne Gretzky's talking to you about playing for that team, and you like already see that team, the talent they have. That's a pretty much a killer, knockout punch there that they've got.
Yeah, it's a big thing that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, I mean Gretzky going. I mean, I'm sure they paid him pretty good to do this, but he's him doing that is really impressive. I mean,
they're picking up free agents now that they never have been able to before.
Yeah, and they're
college free agents.
They're only going to get stronger. Zaitsev coming back will be big tonight. I really do believe. And I think that when you're Polak's out for sure. When you bring up Polak,
he's done for it's a broken leg.
He's done. He's done for the playoffs. This is why we didn't want to trade him before, right? Because to be honest, this is what you had. You're going to have to go deep in the playoffs with different players, and it's not him getting hurt; it's somebody else getting hurt.
And we brought this up. We said you need guys like this,
right? So he's another. Now that Zaitsev to Polak is an enormous upgrade. So for what it's worth, now, and you can sit back and say Zaitsev, they're rushing him in. It's the playoffs; they're not rushing him in. Every team, they NHL's rushing players in right now. Every team in NHL's doing the same thing. You can't just be above that.
No. I'm just. I mean, and the Leafs medical staff wouldn't allow them to quote rush them in when he wasn't ready. But believe me, I think if they had their druthers, he wouldn't be playing tonight. And if Polak,
I think if Polak was healthy, Zaitsev would still.
If Polak wasn't hurt, I think Zaitsev might rest another game. That's all I'm saying. Now, will he make a difference if he can play top 4 minutes? Yes, because then it allows Babcock to put Carrick and Marincin on the bottom pairing and control who they play against, third, fourth liners. But if Zaitsev is being rushed back and he's not capable of playing top 4 minutes and they're playing him on the third pairing, then the more minutes that Martin Marincin plays, the less chance the Leafs have to win.
And that overload him with shots. I mean, again, you don't score on the shots you don't take.
Right. I mean, Polak wasn't hurt. I know that I had that banner right over there.
Yeah.
But if Polak wasn't hurt, they would be rushing him back in because of Marincin. That's like they need to get. I mean, the bottom line is you're right about Marincin. He's killing them, and Zaitsev is going to be going to take this minutes, and he's going to play a lot. He might not be 100%, but he's going to be 80%, which is going to be better than Marincin, or going to be better than a lot of players that they have.
And the one thing, and the last thing I'll say, everybody says this will be, this series will be educational for the Leafs going forward in terms of, the players learning what it is to play playoff hockey. It'll also be educational, not that they really need it, but it will be educational to the Leafs management when they see what is going on with their defense. They will have to address it in the summer because their defense is pathetic.
Well, yeah, and Babcock won't let them forget it. But here's the big factor. We know that the Leafs crowd can be one of two things, either very supportive or very negative. Right. And if they go down 3-0 in this game, will they boo, Mike?
They won't boo. They'll just be silent. It'll be a morgue.
Yeah.
And then to me, actually, Russ, that's worse. It's like, you want some reaction. If you're losing 3-0 in a playoff game, in the first playoff game in 4 years at home, you can understand the fans booing. If it's just sort of like just there and they're sitting on their hands and they're, the people in the Platinums are eating sushi. I mean, then, then.
By the way, that was the best thing to eat during the Store Cup of Hockey.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
Pressure. I think the part that I buried the lead here. This is a lot of pressure at home now for a team that has not, for a crowd that has not seen a playoff team and a young team at that.
Yeah, just look at the picture of game one of it, where I'm going to be tonight at Maple Leaf Square outside of the arena, covering the game. Game two, when they scored the overtime winner, everybody was going crazy. It looked like a mosh pit. Game one, after Tom Wilson scored, 15 seconds after the goal, all that were left were beer cups and a couple stragglers. So that's in a sense, what it would be like in the ACC tonight if they're losing.
I think they get a little bit of I think they can survive a rough game tonight because they have the one win already. I think that if they get 2 rough games in Toronto, then it'll get tricky. But I think that if they have a rough game tonight, people will be like, okay, we're supposed to be down 2-1 at this point. We just gave them back the home ice advantage. Like the home ice advantage thing is that they've now gained the home ice advantage is that's all they have right now.
If they were to lose this game, Mike, what's the story going to be like on the radio in the morning? Because their drive time radio can be brutal.
Well, I mean, And unfairly, I think that game one, the blame went to Freddie Anderson. I don't care if that was a goal that needed to be stopped, shortstop. It was a top corner goal that went off the pole and past him. It was a perfect shot.
Wasn't set.
You know, I know you have to stop it, but they wouldn't have gotten to overtime without Freddie Anderson. If there's one player who's central in the loss, say Gardner or Kadri or so, right, he will get eviscerated on Toronto radio and in the press. And that's the way Toronto is. If somebody stands on their head and plays great, they're gonna get singled out for praise. If they play terribly, they're gonna get singled out for lack of praise.
Because I look at it like this: there is no distraction anymore in Toronto because the Blue Jays are off to their worst start in franchise history, so they are a non-factor. And so literally, and the Leafs are always number one, but now they've got the whole stage. There's nothing to deflect or anything.
Well, come on, the Raptors are in the playoffs for us.
Whatever.
Come on.
Who talks about that?
But the one thing here you remember is that this is Babcock coaching them, and this you're going to have. I mean, that team is going to be loose. They're going to be fine. Babcock is really good at keeping.
You don't know that, Eck. It's nice to say that. You don't know until you see what happens.
This is where the youth. I mean, all right. And last thing, Austin Matthews has had a season for the ages. He, as a 19-year-old, he's done nothing wrong. First game, he was invisible. Second game, up until the third period, he was invisible, and then he started to get into the swing of things. He had a couple chances in overtime. That I think that him loosening up and him feeling more comfortable will continue as the series goes along. So it's a testament to them being tied 1-1 without their best player really standing up. But the thing is, you've got a lot of young players. That feeling, even though they're 2 games in, now they're home, and they have not played, they've played not as well at home than you would expect. They lost 3 of 4 down the stretch when they needed to win at home. So the pressure will be on the Leafs a little bit tonight.
Yeah, and Shanahan's watching from the perch, Lou's watching, Boyer-Salming's watching.
Oh yeah. There's no question. I mean, there's pressure, but that's no different than any other team. I mean, really, honestly,
it's worse than some other teams.
I mean, it is, and it is. I get it.
Okay, name me the pressure in Columbus, how it even gets close to what it might be.
I'm not going to. I'm all right. Let's compare it to what Calgary's going to go through, or what Montreal's going through.
That's fine.
Or even what the Rangers are going through. Like the pressure there, that's to me is, and the Capitals for that matter. I mean, yeah, there's teams with high expectations that are going to, and Canadian teams, I mean, we could have all the Canadian teams out in the first round, we had all of them, they were all down they all lost their first game. Right. So, I mean, the bottom line is this is a tough, it's a tough town, of course, but I think it's a forgiving town. And I do think it's a forgiving town in this one instance. I think that they
cross that.
I'm not saying they're gonna burn Jake Gardner in effigy if they lose. I'm just saying
they'll be all over him in the summer for sure. They'll be like, we got to get a new player in there, and that's
look what they did with Phil Kessel. I mean, come on.
Well, that was the fault of that team's management, singling him out as a core player when he was not a core player. I'm just saying, now they've made the playoffs. They've tasted a little bit of playoff success. If they win, if they lose this series, if to say they lose, the point is, okay, how do we get better? And the pressure will be on Shanahan and Lamoriello and Babcock to make the group better. And that means trades, and that means signing free agents. That's where it's going to go.
It's hard to do because of the fact they made the playoffs and played well against the Caps. It's actually
that's the one thing, though. Like, they haven't really signed free agents with the new regime. They are going to have to start doing that.
Yeah, and if Chris Chelios is right, that's going to be tough.
You look at Marner and Matthews and Kapanen, and you look at all this, and Nylander, and you look at this whole group. It's not that hard for free agents to say I want to go there. I mean,
no.
And Anderson's a solid goalie. I mean, you've got all the. I mean, they always look for a good goalie. You want to. I've talked to many free agents. They always say coach and goalies. That's what they look for.
And here's the other point where I have to give the Leafs credit. Brian Boyle was a great pickup. I will always say it was a great pickup. He won a game for them. You could shake your head, but he was a great pickup.
He got them into the playoffs.
And he won a game for them.
Yeah.
That pass was unbelievable.
I know. All right, let's do the lottery simulator real quick before we get out of here today. So thanks, Mike, for going a little bit longer. We're sorry about the whole problems here.
Sorry.
Let's get this going here. So Here we go. The draft lottery simulator. We'll be getting much more into this stuff very soon on the draft lottery aspect of things. Here we go. The winner is Winnipeg Jets. Canada gets another first overall, which is a streak now that they would have for a couple years going. Next up, we got the Arizona Coyotes, followed by the Devils.
The most desirable team would be the Coyotes, because in that second spot, you could either make a great deal, or you could still get probably who you want, and that's a good spot to be in.
If the Jets would have that pick and they get the big player that they want to get, another big time forward to play with Patrick Laine.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nolan Patrick and Patrick Laine would be fine. I mean, there's no issue there. But Arizona they could go Hischier, they could go Middlestad, they could go, Cody Glass. If they want to move up to Cody Glass, they can go Liljegren. Like, they have so many options at number 2. It's a good spot to be in.
I like the Nolan Patrick Laine kind of idea.
Yeah, Nolan Patrick Laine. There's some sort of flow there.
There is the Patrick Laine.
Symbiotic. There you go.
That feels good. All right, that's all. We got lots of games tonight, lots of interesting games tonight. So beyond, just what you're going to watch with the Leafs game, and you've got the Predators game too. So you got the Predators and Blackhawks, Leafs, and Capitals. You're going to have a lot to watch tonight. Lots of good stuff. I wish that these games are hard to watch all of them at the same time. I like when they stagger them a little bit more than they've been doing. And
when I'm trying to watch a Met game too, so I have literally 4 devices with games on all of them.
It's impossible to go from baseball to playoff hockey. I mean, that's just
not impossible.
That's a shift that I can't make. That's like watching, Andre goes to dinner, and Star Wars back to back. It's impossible.
It's not impossible.
All right. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. Talk to you then.